We go. So welcome back to Coffee Break Chats with Authors. I've already drunk my coffee, but our guest today is author and editor Rhonda Parrish. Rhonda, for people who don't know of you, tell us who you are and what you're known for.
Well, you've already said my name. It's funny you say, like, tell us who you are. And I'm like, okay, I'm Rhonda Parrish. Like, you start into the thing that you're used to saying. But let's not do that. So, um, I am a writer and an editor. I'm actually mostly known for editing anthologies, I think. I've done a ridiculous number of them over the years, and some of them have been nominated for awards, which is awesome. They're largely speculative fiction for the most part, and that's kind of the playground that I play in the most.
Beautiful. And you're very good at it. And I have some of those anthologies on my shelf, largely because I have a story in each of those, and I'm kind of bragging about it. But when you said, it's interesting because as an editor, before we kind of get into any questions, this one, so these are ABC anthologies, folks. I'll put a link to these. Really interesting concept. I'll let you look it up online, folks, if you're watching this. But the story that I submitted to the ABC, Rhonda said, yeah, it's okay. It needs a little bit more, Pete. It needs a little bit more. So she kind of pushed back on it. And I was like, well, that's a bit annoying. I thought it was perfect. But what was interesting was it pushed me to go from a really kind of Monty Python story to putting this a lot more poignant backstory in there. And that story was shortlisted for a horror award over here in Australia. So, Rhonda, it would not have gotten there if you hadn't pushed me to doing a little bit more with it. So I really appreciate that, seriously. So, yeah.
It's that's the it's so hard sometimes when you're working with authors to because I'm also an author, so I know what it feels like to get that. Like, I'm like, here is my perfect shiny wonderful thing, and you're like, well, okay, it is shiny and wonderful, but this is this thing that maybe could be polished up a little bit, and you're like, oh. So it's actually a skill that I've worked pretty hard to develop over the years, is being able to give that feedback in a way that feels like I'm actually recognizing the shiny and wonderful parts while also saying, but maybe not quite perfect.
Yeah, but you definitely did that. You definitely did that. And yeah,
I'm glad to hear that.
again, it worked. So that's what we care about. That's for sure. So we've just had a discussion, done an episode on opening paragraphs, some of our favorite opening paragraphs. So as an author, as a writer yourself, what do you try and achieve in an opening paragraph?
I want the reader to want to keep reading. That's just the number one thing. I mean, how I try and go about doing that depends on what the story is about, or what genre the novel is. Um, Somebody somewhere once said something like, by the time your reader has finished reading the first page of your book or story, that I think it was particularly talking about books, but that there should be at least three hooks in there. And I really took that to heart. I can't remember who it was who said it, but if I'm writing a book, I definitely try to have at least three things in there. If I'm writing a short story, it's a little bit trickier because you don't usually get subplots. but but I definitely want to grab the reader right away.
So three hooks, what would that look like? Would that be three questions that you're raising that they want to get answered, or is it something different to that?
Yes. So three reasons to keep reading. I want to know more about this world. I want to know what the mysterious letter says that the character just got, and I want to know why they were crying. Like, just I have reasons I want to keep reading.
We were just talking off air about your book Hollow, and the first paragraph is two words.
It's
Running helps. Tell us about, like, why did you choose those two words? Why are they there? Why are they the opening paragraph?
I started with running helps because it's super short. So the opening page of that book is the main character out running and getting harassed by the school bully and running around the haunted hospital. So the hooks I'm trying to set are like the haunted hospital and this guy who's a real jerk, and why is she like, what does she need help from? What is she running from? What is she, but running helps, like that paragraph being super short is because she's actively running. So all of the sentences in that opening page are quite short, and they're meant to fit between the rhythm of the steps while she's running.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's almost too, if you're talking while you're running, you're only talking in short bursts of breath as well. So as an editor, when people are submitting short stories to you, what are you looking for in their opening hooks or their opening paragraphs?
uh well, that's actually interesting, because when I'm reading short stories as submissions, often the one of the biggest, no, not biggest, one of the most common issues that I see in stories that are submitted to me is that the story doesn't actually start in the right place. So, oftentimes I'll be reading a submission and I'll be like kind of bored by the opening paragraph. But if if I scroll down a page or two and start reading, sometimes it'll grab me. And it's just the writer working their way into the story, and they think I need to know stuff that I don't actually need to know at the beginning. So what I'm looking for is the reason to keep reading. I'm looking for a voice is probably number one. I want it doesn't have to be the character's voice or the narrator's voice. It just, the story has a voice, like everything has a different sort of feeling to it, and you can tell if it's got a sense of humor or if it's very melancholy or if it's like gothic and angsty, or I'm looking for that voice. And then I'm also looking for the reasons to keep reading. And sometimes it's not where the authors think it is.
Have you ever advised an author, how about you cut these first 4 paragraphs or the first page entirely?
Yeah, frequently. Yeah, I frequently have suggest beginning and ending. This is where I find people run into to trouble the most. So I personally, when I'm writing, I often have to write myself into stories and figure out where it starts. And, sometimes that means, if I'm writing a novel, sometimes it means cutting the first 2 chapters, because that's just me figuring out where it starts, and the reader doesn't need all that stuff. And when I'm editing short stories for people, often it means, well, actually, it starts on page 2. You were just figuring out where it started in the first. And if the stuff in page 1 is actually really important, you can sprinkle it throughout the rest of the story, and the readers will get it that way. But you need to grab them right away. And especially, I think nowadays we all have much shorter attention spans, it seems, than we used to. So you don't have long to grab the reader. You can't. I mean, slow openings can sometimes work still, obviously. There's no this always works or this never works. It can still work. But even those need to have something to grab the reader and keep them reading.
There's got to be something there. Do you think that something needs to be a combination of maybe tension, or, like you said, the voice is engaging, it's fun enough or gloomy enough or whatever it is that keeps you going? Like like you said, it's got to have something there, but it's hard to know what that something is sometimes.
Yeah, it is. I do think it is important to not be coy about what the stakes are. Sometimes we as authors want to wait to make, like, to slowly ease into a reveal and say, well, but it's important for the reader to understand, like you're talking about with the tension. One way to do that is to just make sure that they understand the stakes. If this doesn't happen, then this, or if this does happen, then this, and whatever the and then this is probably not good.
Yeah. That paragraph you read in our other episode, where it ended with, she wouldn't have stayed in the house if she didn't pity the child. that's stakes, because you think, well, what happens to the child if she leaves? What is she giving up to? What is she doing for the child, etc.? Yeah.
Yeah. Why is the child pitiable?
Yes. Yeah. All those things. So if a writer has submitted a story to you, you've kind of gotten through the opening page or so. What else do they have to? What boxes do they have to tick to get you to go, yes, this story might not be perfect, but I want to work with this story?
Well, when I'm doing most of when I read short stories these days, it's for anthologies. So you really want to stand out. I do a lot of themed anthologies, and if the story that I'm reading is sort of picking the low hanging fruit, if the theme is I want to pick something that I didn't actually do an anthology of, so that I'm not using anybody's actual work as an example and I'm drawing a complete blank. If it is about nope, I didn't anthology. I'm just looking at the pictures in my room. I'm sorry. Llamas. If it is about magical llamas and your story is about a magical llama who how they became magical, I'm probably gonna, if I'm reading 200 stories for that anthology, I'm probably gonna read 40 that are about that thing. But if you make it a magical llama in a submarine who is hunting sharks, that's probably going to be the only one of those that I read. So it's going to stick in my memory. Um,
Needs to be a little bit of effort put into.
you want to stand out, and it could just be that it's a really fabulous voice and that's why it stands out. It could be an interesting plot twist and that's why it stands out. Probably if I read through 8 pages and I get to the end and it was 8 pages was all a setup for a joke, it's not going to stand out in the way you think it will. That happens a lot.
That's a long build up. I think I did that to you once too, but it was only 4 pages.
See, I don't mind if it's shorter. It can be the build up to a joke, and that's fine. But don't make the reader go through 8 pages and then it'll just be a joke.
Yeah, especially if it's not funny. Not good.
So I like pretty prose. I like unique settings. I like interesting characters. I like stories that evoke emotion. It doesn't have to be good emotion. If a story makes me angry, that is as good as if it makes me happy. If it makes me cry, that's as good as making me laugh. I prefer to have a character that I can cheer for, but it's not necessary.
Yeah. Are there turn-offs for you in a story? So one of them might be that, the things that you've mentioned, including low-hanging fruit. But yeah, there are other turn-offs that just make you go, oh no, I can't publish this, or I just don't like this.
Some of them are hard to articulate. I don't like if a main character has offensive viewpoints that are offensive to me that aren't pushed back against in the story. I'm happy to accept stories that have jerkish main characters or who have offensive positions that I don't subscribe to, as long as that isn't universally the opinion in the story. So there needs to be a little bit of like recognition that not everybody thinks that way, for example. That's the first thing that comes to
first thing that comes to mind. That's probably important to you then, if that's what comes to mind. That's for sure.
It's funny when you said, do you have any immediate turnoffs? And I thought back to when I was editing Nightblade magazine, and our submission guidelines, actually my biggest pet peeve then was, well, there was 2 of them: people not reading the submission guidelines and people addressing me as Mr. or Sir. And our submission guidelines actually for a while said, like, do not call me Mr. I'm not Mr. If you address me as dear sir, I'm going to be grumpy, and you don't want me to be grumpy before I start reading your story.
It's fair warning. And fair point too. It must be super frustrating when you've said no werewolves and then someone submits a werewolf story. or something like that too.
It's the first 2 days of any open submission period is when everyone who's got anything that might even vaguely almost resemble the theme sends their work for that. And I don't actually mind the people who are like, this is probably not a super great fit, but I happen to have it here, and so I'm going to send it and see what you say, because 1,000% you should never self-reject ever. Like
Mhm.
that's my job, that's not your job. However, if I have an anthology where I'm looking for horror stories and you're sending me hardcore erotica, like that's not even trying. Like,
Yes. And probably they've sent it to 16 other anthologies as well, or open calls yet.
yeah,
Yeah.
just at least get the genre right.
Yes. That'd be a good start. That'd be a good start. Do you find though that sometimes it's hard to, because there are some blurring of lines between genres? Those two examples you just used, yes, they are poles apart, but sometimes dark fantasy and horror, for example, kind of butt up against each other. So I guess
Oh,
you have a little bit more leeway there, I suppose.
absolutely. And I've been on several, panels at conventions or whatever, saying what's the difference between dark fantasy and horror, and I'm basically like,
Mm.
I
Well,
mean, I know it when I see it, maybe. But yeah, so I'm not, and I don't think most people get into editing because they're ogres. I'm not an ogre. I don't If I say this is a fantasy anthology and you send me something that is horror, it might still fit. I usually just say speculative fiction because I feel like that is a big umbrella, and
mm.
it gives more leeway to people, and I generally don't want to constrain people because I want the stories that I would never in a million years have thought about, right? I want the magical llama in the submarine hunting the sharks.
Yeah,
So, and and who would ever think to put that in a call for submissions? Not me.
exactly. What of the ABC anthologies so far, they're all fantastic. But my favourite is the Apocalypse one, the very first one, because there was so. I mean, I've read book after book that's post-apocalyptic. That's pretty much the same story, and that's why I read them. But 26 different, completely different takes on apocalypse was really, and some of them were really out there, and they just superb. But yeah, so that must be
Yeah,
fun. That must be fun. What would you
it is.
say, apart from word count, what do you think are the big differences between a short story and a novel? You kind of alluded to it in terms of what you're setting up on the first page, but yeah, what are the big differences between the two forms of fiction?
I mean, with a short story, you usually only get one point of view. Usually, not always. You usually only get one, you don't get any subplots. You want to, you have to imply more than with a novel. With a novel, you have, X number of pages that you can world build and explain things to people and show them how it works. And uh, with a short story, if you need to establish that you need the irising door to be like, okay, we are in space, in a spaceship. Like you need to know the flags that you can put up that will signal to people what everything means. You can't waste any words there.
Yeah, yeah. That's it. That takes me off on a sidetrack for a second. One in my writers group, a sticking point for me seems to be if I have a male author who identifies as male, and they're writing a point of view, a really tight point of view piece, and I find out on the second or third page that the character is transgender or female, it's really jarring to me because I've just assumed that it's a man writing, so it's a male character. Is that just me? And you're welcome to say it is, because it could be.
No, I've definitely experienced that. It's I read a lot of short stories, right? Because I read for a lot of anthologies, and if it is first person, and there's no indication to me, like you say, on the first couple of pages, that the gender of the character is different than the gender that I would associate the author with. And interestingly, a lot of times I have no idea what the gender of the author who submitted to me is, and then I seem to default to female. And I think it's because that's how I identify. So, but if there's no like indication for me on the first few pages and I get to page 6 and then I learn the gender is different than what I'd assumed, it's certainly not a deal breaker for me. It doesn't break the story or break the world for me, but my feedback to that author would generally be give me a hint on page 1.
Yeah.
Just so that the reader, because when you have that moment of, oh wait, oh okay, and you're readjusting, you're pulled out of the story for that. It might only be 3 seconds, but you don't want to lose the reader for even 3 seconds, right? So if you can just set them up at the very beginning to understand whose body, whose mind they are inhabiting, then it'll help you not lose them for that moment when you have the reveal on page 6.
And what are the important impressions about and details about that character without getting too telly? Yeah, it's the same for me as if for some reason the color of their hair is important, and then they reveal that on page 6, and I'm like, oh, I had them pegged as brown hair, not blue hair or yellow hair or whatever it is. Yeah, if it's an important detail, we probably need to know it pretty early somehow.
It's interesting how I totally agree with you, and simultaneously it's interesting how little if it doesn't matter, how little it matters. Because I edited a series of books, and I think I'd edited 3 of them, and then they got new covers, and the new covers had the main character on them, and I went, is that what they look like? Because I had no idea, and the author was like, yeah, it's totally what they look like. I like it. In that case, it didn't matter because it didn't matter.
Yeah.
But if the main character had suddenly been a man instead of a woman, I would have been like, okay, we have a problem.
This has completely reinterpreted the entire story for me.
Because yeah. So it's interesting. If it matters, it matters. And if it doesn't matter, and sometimes you can't tell what's going to matter and what's not. So
that's why we need editors. Or one of the reasons, we need editors, that's for sure. So Rhonda, where did you learn to write, or how did you learn to write?
I don't know. I've written for, everybody says I've written for as long as I can remember, but I've really, ever since I could write, I have been writing. And I was pretty lonely kid. I didn't have a lot of friends. I spent a lot of time in the library reading books, just devouring stories and then telling my own stories. And writing was a thing that I was good at, and it was a thing that other people recognized that I was good at. So the teachers recognized I was good at it, and the other students, they might not like me, but they knew I was a pretty good writer. And so it was sort of a thing that I just grabbed onto as part of my identity. And I never really stopped writing. Um there's been times in my life that I've written more or less, or I've shifted to a different kind of writing, but it's pretty constant. So, I've done some workshops and I've read some books and whatnot, but I think mostly I've learned just by doing it, and sometimes doing it badly, really, really badly. And then just learning from that and getting better. Um, I remember one of the first stories I ever wrote and shared with somebody. Um, he read it and he said, "Okay, it's got some good stuff in there, but you have to stay in one tense, right? You can't just keep changing from past to present to."
Yep.
And I used to use then and then interchangeably because that's how I talked, and I didn't quite process that those were actually different words with different meanings.
Yeah.
I, we learn these things sometimes the hard way, but
And again, that's one of the things editors are for, is to say, Pete, I don't think that word means what you think it means, or this is, for whatever reason, this is not working. But the more specific the feedback, the better. more
And
helpful.
it's actually really interesting. I don't think this word means quite what you think it means, because that comes up more than you'd think. And it's not, it's just a thing where we use a word, we think it means something, and then you just find out that it doesn't. And because of that, actually, because of seeing that so often when I'm editing, I've started becoming kind of obsessive. If I'm gonna make like write a tweet, I'm like, wait a minute, I need to make sure this word actually means what I think it means before I put it out. Like Google, my Google searches is mostly me checking to make sure that words mean what I think they do.
Mhm. Mhm. Spelling's a big one for me too. I found out
Oh,
recently. I thought I was a good speller, but I was stuck on the word shoot. Someone went down the chute. I'd never written it in a book before. This was probably last year, and I was looking for searching. Why can't I find this word? And then I texted a friend of mine and said, "Am I crazy? There is a word shoot, shut," and he went, "Yeah, except it's spelled chut." And then it's strangely enough, it appeared in my Google searching and my dictionary. So,
my
well,
Microsoft Word dictionary is weird because
isn't it?
I write in Canadian English, but I often have to send it to publishers in American English, and often when I'm editing for people, it's for American publishers. So then so my my dictionary is a weird combination of all the things, and I frequently have to stop and go, no, that can be spelled with an S, right? I'm not. It doesn't need to be a Z. I'm not crazy, am I?
So Canadian English is more like British.
Yeah, we're kind of a weird hybrid of British and American,
Okay.
just
So do you
just to
spell
keep it fun.
neighbor with a U?
With a U,
You
yeah.
do, yeah. You get the thumbs up from this Aussie. That's good. But yeah, I'm the same. I have to try and write in American English, and I have friends over here who constantly correct it, and I'm saying to them, but it's the market that I'm writing for. That you just got to. Anyway, so a final question before we kind of wrap up, and you're going to hate this question. Everybody does. Do you have a favorite book or author? And
I
you
do.
you do.
I do,
Wow.
actually. My favorite book is I'm looking up as I'm answering this question because I have two copies of it sitting right there. My favorite book is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman.
Oh wow, wow. Why do you have two copies?
Um, be, well, I got one is like a special edition copy that was signed. And then the second one was there was an auction for like a personalized signed one.
Nice.
So yeah, I had to do that.
Is Gaiman your favorite author, or would you say you've got a different? If you had one,
Um, I
yeah.
have I have several favorite. I have a favorite book, but I have several favorite authors. He would definitely be one of them. Peter S. Beagle and Charles Dickens and P.G. Woodhouse, and like the list just goes on and on.
Very diverse list too.
Yeah,
Very diverse from Woodhouse.
yeah, it's pretty eclectic. I mean, that kind of defines my career too, though, right? I don't just edit, or I don't just write, and I don't just do it in one genre. If I did, if I had a little bit of focus, it would be wonderful because I might be able to like get more done, but I don't. I definitely have magpie energy, and I'm like, oh, that's shiny, and I want that thing. And
Well, that might link into us talking about a book you've got coming out very soon. So let me. Oh, it's disappeared. Well, that's
it's
annoying. I'll let you
hiding.
talk about it and I'll try and find it again. My apologies.
I have this book coming out in May. It's called Blind Spots, and it's the first in a planned series called No Man's Land. And it actually is a perfect thing from what we're talking about because it is completely difficult to describe. It is a story about some anthropomorphic dogs who fly planes and drop bombs. Uh, they're in a post-apocalyptic, post-war situation. So it's quite dark, but it's also dogs, and and it's got some really awesome illustrations in it, which are kind of childlike and friendly, but the story is a little bit grittier than the illustrations imply, and I just love it. I have a Patreon, and a couple of years ago I put up a poll to say what should I write next, and I had all of these pre-made book covers, and this is the one that won the poll.
Oh, wow.
So I wrote the book in 2020, which was the perfect time for me to write something like both light and dark, because I needed lightness and I was surrounded by darkness, and it came together into this really difficult to describe book, but that I'm super fond of. Yeah, I'm releasing it exclusively to my Patreon, because they are the ones who paid for me to have the time to write it. But I mean, patronage is inexpensive. It starts at $1, and I've got the first chapter, because it's so difficult to describe. Like, I just rambled for 2.5 minutes, and I'm not really sure I did it justice. And most people online aren't going to listen to me talk about it for that long. So I actually just put the first chapter up on my Patreon, so anybody who wants to can read it, and they can get an idea of, like we're talking about, with the voice and the characters and the tone and what exactly you're getting into there. But I think it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome, Rhonda. And I tried to put the cover up. I'm not sure what people saw while I was trying to screen share, but it's just not cooperating with me. But
I did
cover,
see it.
Yeah, the covers is very cool. It's cute, but it hasn't. Yeah, it's curious. It makes you curious, which is what you want. So we'll put some details to that. Definitely worth supporting Rhonda. She's a fabulous writer. Read a lot of her stuff, and I know you'll enjoy that too. Rhonda, thank you very much for your time. It must be getting on to dinner time, your side of the Pacific.
Very close.
Very close. Must be getting hungry. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. And folks, really encourage you to look up Rhonda online and get into her Patreon, get into some of these wonderful anthologies, and you will not be disappointed. Thank you very much, Rhonda.
Thank you for having me.
See ya.